Hello again. So this is the next video lecture for CPCS 203. Going to be, we'll do a couple of things that are mentioned in your slides, already uploaded on Blackboard, but maybe not in enough detail. So I'm going to show you three different things that you'll find in the slides. So the first one is basically how do you uh, shift the elements in an array by one location to the left or to the right. Okay, so this is also called a shift operation. So I create a new project. I call this one week 3.2 3-2. Since this is going to be for the second lesson of week 3. All right, so I begin first by creating um, by creating a new array, and I'm just going to make this one 20 elements in size, and of course we also want to initialize this array, and I'm going to initialize this one to random numbers between 0 and 100. Okay, so actually I think I'll be using quite a few loops today in this method, so I'll just define I once up there. There you go. And after I initialize all the elements in A, I also want to see what they actually are. So this will scale the random number to the range 0 to 100, and since I'm working with integers, I'm going to cast this value to an integer. So we already did this before, and actually, in the same loop, what I can also do is I can use, instead of adding another loop, I can use the same loop to also print out each of these values. So I'll do that very quickly. There you go. And space between each, and just to format this a little more nicely, I'm going to add some text to make this more readable. So this is array A. Okay, uh, there you go. And just to keep things neat, also going to also going to close that bracket. So if I just run this, here's my array of 20 elements containing 20 random numbers between 0 and 100. Okay, so we're just going to use this array for the actual tasks we're going to try out now. So let's see. So first of all, first task that I want to do is I want to add a method that takes an array like this array A over here, and it reverses all the elements. Now, in your slides, there's actually a very detailed example that walks you through that. This is basically the idea. You have an array like this, and by the time the code finishes running, you want to have an output array that contains the same elements as in the input array, but in reverse order. That's what we'll do first. And I want to encapsulate, I want to put all of the code that does that, I want to put this inside a method. So, public static, and this method is going to return an array, and I'm going to call this method reverse because it's reversing all the elements in there. Okay, so my code will now go in here, inside this method. All right. Now, in order to do this, as long as I'm working inside this method, I'll need a second array into which I can write the elements. I'll call this one a reverse, and this will also be an integer array. And what will be its size? Its size will needs an argument, so this will take as argument an integer array of let's say I'm calling it a in. Okay, and so the output will be a reversed version of array a, and it'll be of size equal to a in. There you go. Okay, what else? Yep, we'll do this in a loop, of course. One loop is all we need. And it will run for the length of a in. And inside the loop, so I start at the first element of a in, and I assign it to the last element of a reversed. Now, using index I, how can I get to the last, and then to the second last, and then to the third last element of a reversed? So basically I want to count up the positions in a in, and at the same time I want to use the counter variable I to count down elements in a reversed. The way to do that is, sorry, so a in dot length minus 1. This is the last element, and I want to subtract from that the index I. Now, as I keeps changing, as I becomes bigger, as the for loop executes, I go one position back from the last element of a reverse. So basically, I'm accessing the first to last elements of a in, and I'm accessing last to first elements of a reversed. When the for loop finishes, we're done. All we have to do then is return this new array that we wrote to a reversed. That's it. Now let's I'm sorry, wrong place. It's to be outside the main method. There you go. Now outside of in the main method again, what we now want to do is, back in the main method, we want to call this new method reverse that we just created. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass array A of the main method. I'm going to pass that to the reverse method, and the return array I get, I write that back into array A. I can do that. We could have also allocated a separate new array for the output, but there's really no need. And when we're done, I'm just going to print out the new version of A. And I'll call this A reversed. A rev, I think that'll do. Okay, so let me run this. There you go. Oh, unexpected type found. Oh, forgot the new keyword. Okay, there you go. Okay, so here's the original array A, and over here should be a reversed version of that. Oh, sorry. Forgot to take this out. Remember, the second time we're running this loop, just want to print out the values of A, not overwrite them. All right, here you go. Okay, yeah. So you can see in the original array A, I have the values 1, 50, 29, 5, 26, and so on. And in the reverse version, I have the same numbers in the same order, but reverse. So I have 1, 50, 29, 5, 26, and so on, if I start reading from the end of the output array. There you go. So what I just did over here should be a lesson to you. Careful when you are copying, pasting, to reuse code. Okay, so this is how you add a method that can, let's do better indentation, that reverses the elements in an array. All right. Let's do something new now. Okay, so did this. Let's add another method. Let's add another method that does this, that shifts the elements by one location. Let's do that now. You already did random shuffling in class, so now let's write a short method that shows us how to shift elements by one location to the left. So I'm going to do this again inside a method, static method. So like before, this method also takes as an array as input and returns another array as output. And actually for this one, I don't need to allocate new memory, as you'll see. I can do this operation staying within the same array I already have. I do need a temporary variable, however. And this is how we do it. So in the temporary variable, I store only the first element of my array, because I will overwrite that now. I will overwrite that. Okay. And I have a loop here that goes from the first element to the second last element. And every time I write the next element in the array into the one before. You can see when I is equal to 0, A0 will be overwritten by A1. And because A0 will be lost, that's why I have to save A0 into this temporary integer variable right in the beginning. And when we're done, I simply write, sorry, I simply write the temporary variable into the last location, in dot length -1. I write it into the last location of an, and I return an. So the method is finished. Now let me go back to the main method over here, and let me call this shift function. And I'll do it in a way similar to how I use the reverse method. Just going to write the output of the shift method back into array A so as to save memory. And after I do that, I want to check what's in array A, how the array A has changed. So let's run this now. Okay, I think got everything. There you go. Okay. So still the original array A. This is array A after we reversed it, and in the third output line, you can see that the second element over here was 16. After I call the shift function, 16 moves into the first location. 52 was in the third location, moves into the second location. 34 was in the fourth location, moves into the third location, and so on. And look at what happened to the first element, 69. 69, which we stored in the temp variable, we moved that all the way back into the end. So basically, this operation that is shown over here as in figure form. We move each element to the left by one location, and the leftmost element is moved into the last location. Okay, so we still have all the same elements, they're just in slightly different places. This is also called a shift operation or a left shift operation because each number is moving one location to the left. Just for fun, I could also call the shift method 3 times, which means that now we expect when we print out the array A again over here, every element should be shifted not 1 but 3 locations to the left. Let's see if that is the case very quickly. There you go. So over here 34 is in location 4, location 3, index location 3. When I call shift 3 times, 34 ends up in location 0. And as you can see, 9, 44, and 85, the first 3 elements, 9, 44, 85, are now the last 3 elements of that array. Okay. So that's another thing done. Let me show you one more. Summing all the elements of an array. Pretty straightforward now after all the stuff that you've done. I'll also give you a hint today about the task you'll do in class next time. Show you something. Let me show you a slide. Yeah. So you already did this in class. Finding the largest element. You will be needing this again. Okay. I'll just tell you very briefly. What I'll ask you to do is, I'll ask you to do this. Sorting arrays. And if you go through your lecture slides, you'll see that this is already very well explained. So basically, I'll be asking you to do this as an exercise, as a task in class. Okay, so this was just something I wanted to say in between. So hopefully that'll make next class, that'll allow more of you to finish your class programming exercise. Okay. So, okay, public static. So this will be a method that adds up all the elements in the integer array that it is passed to. Call this method array sum. It receives an integer array a in and need to store the sum in an integer, of course. Um, and then I have a loop over here, and in that loop, which runs for the entire length of A in, I'm simply going to add each element of A in to sum. Sum, it's not explicitly clearly initialize it to 0, although there's no need. Java will initialize integers to 0 by default. So actually, it's just to demonstrate that. Let me just remove that. Okay, so we get through this for loop, and at the end of that, sum will contain the sum of all the elements in the array. It's been given as argument. So we just return the argument, the variable, the value of the variable sum. And that's it. Let's test this method out. So we just don't need a loop for this. We're just printing out a number. So system print sum of all elements in array A equals whatever array sum returns. That's it. Okay, let's run this. Oh, missed something. Line 79. We miss over here. Might not be initialized. Okay, there you go. Okay, apparently. All right. So did need to initialize that. All right, here you go. Run that again. There you go. Okay, and let's put this into. Let's make the output a little neater. Let's put a new line character after this line we print out. There you go. So 880 reversed, it becomes 880 15 in reverse. Shifted 3 times, it becomes this thing, still the same numbers, and the sum of all those elements is 958. If you run this again, since all these numbers generated are random, there you go. This time we get the sum 942, 1085, 923, and so on. So make sure you practice this. Practice using methods, because ultimately we're going to move on to object-oriented programming concepts, which means you'll be working with a lot of classes, which will have their own methods, lots of them sometimes. So make sure you're handy with encapsulating your code into different functions, performed by your program into separate methods. Okay, so that's all for today, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you.